quickly. Is it on? We mentioned yesterday, or I indicated towards the story of the father of Ayatollah Sistani, and there were requests from both sides to hear that. And I was also told that the past few years has been low in numbers for Ashra Zainabiyya. So inshallah, because tomorrow is Christmas Day, they have an earlier program, there will be more individuals. And tomorrow the topic is based on Nabi Isa and Hazrat Maryam Salamullahi alayha. So we will entwine the story tomorrow. So 1 day's notice for anyone who wants to hear the story. Inshallah, tomorrow that story will be mentioned. I thought it was a famous story, but of course people forget. And I'm sure once I mention it, people remember, yes, that story that has been mentioned. So inshallah, tomorrow we'll mention this story. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والجنة للموحدين للملحدين والصلاة والسلام على طالب الحق الحادي إليه أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل رسوله المختار الأبرار والأتحار سيما على الإمام المنتظر والحجة الثاني عشر اللهم أجل لوليك الفرج اللهم اجعلنا لنعمائك من الشاكرين والآلائك من الذاكرين صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله يا ليتنا كنا معك فنفوز فوزا عظيما قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات. On the day of Qiyamah, people will be pointing at certain individuals. Who is that individual? Is he a prophet? The reply will come, no. Is he a wali of Allah, a guardian of Allah? The reply will come, no. Is he a companion of one of the Anbiya, one of the prophets? No. Is he a companion of the Imams? No. Who is he? His face is radiant. He looks like a prophet. He looks like a great companion. The reply will come, that individual is one of the ulama who did tabligh during the ghaibah of Imam Mehdi ajjallahu ta'ala farajahu al-sharif. In other words, those individuals who are ulama, who are muballighin during the ghaibah of the imam during this time, are those individuals who will have such a great status in the hereafter. Approximately 1 year ago in this very Hyderi, I mentioned, or I recited a lecture on a Thursday program entitled The Biography of Shaheed-e-Awwal. Shaheed-e-Awwal is a scholar known as the first Shaheed. And I mentioned in that lecture, the lecture was regards to his whole life, and I mentioned in that lecture that there are 5 ulama known as Shaheed. Shaheed-e-Awwal, Thani, Thalith, Rabi' and Khamis. 5 shuhada who were ulama. After the lecture, someone came to me, or a few people came to me and said, we thought you were going to cover all 5 of their history in one lecture. And I said that if we were to do that, then the only person left would be the caretaker. Because of course it would take 3 hours, 4 hours to cover all of their life history in one lecture. So I decided that one lecture in this Arba'een Ashra will dedicate to the next Shaheed, Shaheed-e-Thani. The other 3, I don't know how you'll find out about them. You can maybe read about them. Maybe someone in the future will talk about the other 3. But Shaheed-e-Thani is the second. We understand as individuals that the role a scholar plays, as we mentioned yesterday, is very important within our own society. The role a alim plays is paramount to our success and our development. For there's a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam where he says, 2 groups of people. If these 2 groups of people are guided, the rest of the general public will be guided. And if these 2 groups of people are misguided, then the whole general public will be misguided. Someone asked, Ya Rasulullah, who are those 2 people, those 2 groups? He said, the first are the ulama. If the scholars are guided, they will guide others. Every single other person will also be guided. The second are the rulers. For as Amir al-Mu'mineen says in Nahj al-Balagha, النَّاسُ عَلَى دِينِ مُلُوكِهِمْ. People follow the rule, the religion, the way of life of their king. If their king is an extravagant individual, they'll be extravagant. If their king does not have religiosity within his life, they will also duplicate this. So these 2 groups, the ulama and the kings and the rulers, are vital for our development. We understand when looking at these, or this study of the history of ulama, 4 types of scholars are found within the books. The first scholar is he who was alive during the time of the A'imma alayhim wassalam and was known as a companion. For example, Dhurara rahmatullah alayhi was a great faqih, a jurist. We mentioned yesterday Abu Hamza al-Thumali, Safwan. These individuals were great ulama, great scholars, but they were known as companions because they lived during the time of the imams. The second are those scholars that are part of ghaibah, but they are part of the preliminary stages of ghaibat al-sughra, ghaibat al-kubra. And they are known as ulama al-mutaqaddimin. Those are those scholars who were alive during the preliminary, introductory stages of ghaibat al-kubra, and this period ends with Allama Hilli. So Allama Hilli is the last scholar of ulama al-mutaqaddimin. After that comes ulama al-mutaakhirin. These are those ulama which take part the second stage of ghaibatul kubra. And they end with Shaykh Murtada Ansari rahmatullah alayhi. So those are 3 types. The 4th type of scholar are those that are alive today. Shaheed-e-Thani is the second of the Shaheed, known as Shaheed the martyr, and he was born in Jabal Amil. As I mentioned last year, Jabal Amil is a mountainous area in South Lebanon. Before we go on to his story, let me tell you that one of the most interesting fields of knowledge is this qasasul ulama, the stories of the ulama, the scholars. You will find amazing stories, interesting stories, stories which will shake your hearts about how great the ulama actually was and their services. For there have been scholars whose hands have become paralyzed from writing books. Paralyzed. There have been scholars who have caused great damage to their health just to serve the Ahlul Bayt and Islam. And there have also been scholars that have had such great powers. They've been given this by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, a quick example, then we go into Shaheed-e-Thani. Sayyid Radhi and Sayyid Murtada are probably one of the most well-known scholars that we know of today. Sayyid Murtada was known as Alamul Huda. Sayyid Radhi was that individual who compiled Nahj al-Balagha, as we know. Inshallah, maybe in the future we'll mention about these 2 scholars. It is mentioned, they were great scholars. Sayyid Murtada, he lived till the age of 80 years old. He was older than Radhi, Sayyid Radhi. Sayyid Radhi only lived till 56. However, both of their contributions to the madhab of Ahlul Bayt is great. One day, Sayyid Murtada, who was older and more learned, was leading the Salah of Jama'ah. Next to him was his brother. Behind him, not exactly behind. He noticed halfway through the Salah that Sayyid Radi began reciting the Salat of Furada. He broke through the Jama'at. When they got home, they complained to their mother. Mom, look, I was leading Salatul Jama'ah and Radi, he changed. He doesn't respect me. Radi replied, no, I could read your mind. I could read your mind. These are the ulama. I could read your mind. I realized while you were leading the prayer of Jama'ah that you were thinking about a certain fiqhi issue. So I realized your concentration is no longer in your salah. Sayyid Murtada turns around and says, but your concentration wasn't in salah either. You were reading my mind. So both of our salah is not accepted. These ulama had such great skills, such great iman. By reading their stories, it should shake our hearts and increase our faith. Shaheed-e-Thani, before we go into his life, recite a very loud salawat. He was born in 911 AH in Jabal Amil. Jabal Amil, as I mentioned, is the mountainous area in South Lebanon. And I mentioned this last year in the lecture on Shahid al-Awwal, that the reason why Lebanon has so many Shia is because of Abu Dhar al-Ghafari, rahmatullah alayh, because he was exiled there, and he caused propagation of Shia Islam in Jabal Amil today. Hezbollah, etc., the many Shia families that are found in Lebanon are because of Abu Dhar al-Ghafari. He was born in 911 AH. His name was Sheikh Zainuddin ibn Nuruddin. And it is said about him that he would travel a lot. As the Quran says, Siru fil ard fandur. Travel in the land. Go to different places. See the beautiful mountains, the beautiful trees, the natural life which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. He would travel to many different areas. However, he realized, I am a scholar, I should not be dependent on the public. I will not be one of those individuals that begs. So he, as an individual, despite his services and ibadah during the day, in the night time, Shaheed-e-Thani would go to the woods and he would collect large amounts of wood. The next morning he would sell it to earn his living. In other words, when he should have been sleeping, he was earning his living so that he was not reliable on the community. The first lesson we take from the life of Shaheed-e-Thani is this, that me and you, and I have complete conviction, complete yaqeen, that the majority of us work hard for our rizq. If you look at the global Muslim population, the majority of us earn halal rizq. If you look at the global population, there is only a very small minority who call themselves Muslim. And they fraud individuals. And they cheat and they steal. The majority of us, mashallah, are eating halal food. The majority of us are working hard for our rizq. However, those that aren't haven't understood what effects haram rizq has on our body. I've said this before. Every single pound of weight I, as an individual, gain from haram rizq is a haram pound of weight. And Allah will only forgive me until I lose that pound of weight. Every morsel of food that I eat, which is haram or has been earned from haram income, is a haram morsel of food. We don't understand. I usually mention in many centers this beautiful story narrated by a scholar from Najaf himself, and it is also a story of Najaf. That, as I mentioned yesterday, Najaf and Kufa before were two different cities. They're very close together. Now they are one. And the water of Najaf is very sour. Till today, the water of Najaf, the city of Najaf, is very sour. And so, there were certain individuals whose trade involved traveling to Kufa, taking sweet water, bringing it back to Najaf and selling it to the people. Because the people couldn't drink the water that came out from the ground in Najaf. There was one individual, he worked hard for his rizq, halal rizq. He would travel from Najaf to Kufa early in the morning. In the hot sun of Iraq, he was a hard-working individual, he traveled to Kufa. He would bring back large barrels of water. One day, he went to Kufa, he came back, the day had just begun, sweat was oozing down from his forehead, and he saw a child. Now, children, as we know, when they're not mature, they do crazy things, whatever, spontaneous things. This child, he saw this barrel of water, he had a rock in his hand. He thought, why not? He threw the rock. He threw the rock at the barrel bursts, all the water goes everywhere. This individual is thinking, I woke up early in the morning, I went all the way to Kufa. In this hot sun of Iraq, I came all the way back, and I realized that when I come back, I will have a source of income. Now this child has done this. He held the child by the hand. Take me to your father. He says, okay. The child, what did he know? He said, okay. Coincidentally, his father was an alim, a scholar, ruhani. He said, look, your child has done this. The father, the alim, says, wait here. He took the child straight to the child's mother. He says, O wife, O mother of this child, I tried to put every morsel of food on the table to be a halal morsel. In other words, I tried to feed me, you, and the child halal food from halal income. What did you do? What did you do? Because he's turned out like this. She said, look, I've done nothing. He said, no, you've done something. I've always put halal food. I've always earned halal rizq. What have you done? So she begins to reminisce. She begins to think. She remembers that when she was pregnant, as we know, pregnant women, they have many cravings. Pomegranate, apple, aubergine, whatever they feel like. She says, I was coming from the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi. And I had a craving for pomegranate. I saw there was a stall there, the vendor was selling pomegranate. I went up to him. However, I didn't want to buy the pomegranate, then realized it was sour. So when he wasn't looking, I took one pomegranate, I took my nail. I pierced the pomegranate, and I took one sip of one drop of the pomegranate juice. And I realized it was sour. I threw it away back onto the stall, I went back home. The scholar says that one drop of haram pomegranate juice is why our child has done this act, and why our child has been a naughty child. Imagine if from one drop of haram pomegranate juice, this is the effect, what would be the effect of pounds and pounds of haram meat? Imagine when individuals come, they don't feel spiritual. They don't have akhlaq. It's because of this haram meat that they are consuming. And as I said, majority of us, mashallah, halal food, halal rizq, and we work hard for our rizq in the way that Shaheed-e-Thani did. So Shaheed-e-Thani in his life, he ensured that he never was dependent on any individual, and he ensured that his rizq was halal rizq. They say he became a mujtahid at the early ages of his 20s, so 23, 24, 25. However, for approximately 10 years of his life, he did not announce that he was a mujtahid. Imagine, as I mentioned yesterday, being a mujtahid is a very difficult thing. 8 PhDs, as I mentioned yesterday. A lot of research involved. When he reached such a high status, can you imagine? He did not tell even one single person. Me as an individual, I have a BA, a MA, a PhD, a MPhil. I'm a doctor, I want to tell individuals. It's part of human nature that I tell individuals, look, I have this degree, be happy for me. Shaheed-e-Thani, he becomes a mujtahid. For 10 years, he's quiet. No one knows, I think this is just a normal individual who's traveling around. No, he was a mujtahid, yet still he did not tell one soul. Why? Because he encompassed the values of Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi, encompassed the values of Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha, who as individuals, when people would point the finger, Hussein ibn Ali used to pray. Their family are religious. I didn't know that. People have said this, that their family used to pray. They know about religion. The religion came from their house. Imam Hussein, even though people pointed the finger, he was never arrogant. Never did he say, I am Hussein ibn Ali, I have this much knowledge. I am Hussein ibn Ali, I have this many excellent qualities. He was silent, he was humble, he had humility. In the same way, Shaheed-e-Thani within his life ensured that humility was found. And we find a beautiful example when we look at the prophets. The lives of the Anbiya alayhim salam are also lives which we should study and look at. Nabi Ibrahim salamullah alayhi, for example. Nabi Ibrahim, they said one day he was standing and Jibreel was descending down from the skies. Jibreel was descending down. He said, Ya Jibreel, salamu alaykum, alaykum salam. Where are you going? He said, Oh Ibrahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me down on this earth to give the title of Khalil to one of his servants. Khalil meaning friend. Ibrahim. Is there any greater prophet, any greater individual than Ibrahim at the time? No. Ibrahim, the mountain of Tawheed. Ibrahim, the soldier of Allah. Ibrahim, the father of many prophets. This great individual, look how humble he is. He says, "O Jibreel, tell me who that servant is so that I can kiss his feet." Tell me who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is appointing as Khalil, as his friend, so I can kiss the dust under his feet, so that I can serve that individual. Ibrahim, such a great prophet, has such humility. Jibreel says, "Ibrahim, you are very weird." He says, "Why? You are Khalil. You are the friend that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has appointed." He said, "Me, what have I done?" Have we ever said, "What have we done?" We say, "What have I not done?" I've done everything. Ibrahim says, "What have I done?" The reply comes, "Ibrahim, you always used to eat with individuals. You gave money. You were kind. You never turned your back away, O Ibrahim. How are you so humble?" In the same way, Shaheed-e-Thani, despite being a mujtahid, he doesn't announce it. He's not arrogant. Me and you can learn from this. Remove arrogance from our lives. This was Shaheed-e-Thani. So Shaheed-e-Thani, he traveled across the whole world. And there is a very interesting story of the way in which he traveled in Istanbul, Constantinople, Turkey. However, before that, I quickly want to mention the way in which he traveled to Egypt and he studied at the Al-Azhar University. However, before that, because some of you are looking tired, wake yourselves up and myself as well with a loud salawat. Every single individual, or most of us in this room, say that we are Shia Muslims. Yes? And it is an observation that there is a lot of ignorance between Shia and Sunni. And I think there is more in the Sunni end about Shias. Do we ever spread rumors about our Sunni brothers? No. Do we say, for example, so-and-so was actually meant to be the prophet? This is what the Sunnis believe, but by accidentally Rasulullah was given prophethood. Do we say that about them? No. Do we say they have a different Quran? No. Do we make fun of them? No. Do we spread allegations? No. However, unfortunately, there is a lot of ignorance on their end. Because they sincerely, genuinely, they believe the Shia Quran is different. Shia, all they do is mut'ah, 24/7, for example. The Shia, for example, they beat their chest, they self-flagellate, this is an un-Islamic practice. They spread so much hatred against the Shia when they know nothing about us. Here you find Shaheed-e-Thani, he did something very interesting. That he realized that in order to bridge the gap between Shia and Sunni, in order to ensure that there is no ignorance between the two parties, he went all the way to Egypt to study under Sunni scholars. Why? Because he wanted to know the Sunni faith as well, so that he could understand his faith better, so that he was not ignorant about other individuals. Why is it that till today, we are ignorant to a certain extent about them, but not as much as they are ignorant about us? And that's why with the book that was printed, the programs that are done at universities, the programs that are done at centers about bridging these gaps, making sure, look, we as individuals understand the difference between us and our brothers is a big difference. You have to admit it's a big difference. And we as individuals will never have any leeway with our beliefs. We believe in the 12 Imams and the Isma of all of the 14 Masumeens, and we will never give way to this belief. It's a big difference between what they believe and what we believe. However, we respect them in the way that the ulama studied under those scholars to gain a greater amount of knowledge about their part of faith. We respect them. However, let me say one thing. We as individuals do not respect, we respect humans. Whether he be atheist, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Jew, whatever, Sikh, we respect them. We don't respect one type of individual. We as individuals, we don't respect the haters of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. How can we respect those individuals who till today have Baqi in their control? How can we respect those individuals who have taken or who have tried to take hostage of Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha in Syria? How can we respect those individuals? The Saudi prince, one of the Saudi princes of the royal family, this year, 1434, he got his son married when? On the day of Ashura. It was in the paper. He got his son married. 365 days are there on the day of Ashura. These are those individuals. What have they not done to damage Shia madhab? We will never respect those individuals. We will never respect those individuals that till today curse Ali ibn Abi Talib salamullah alayhi and Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi and are happy about what happened in Karbala. We will respect those individuals that love the Ahlul Bayt. Yes, they have difference of opinion. We will not change our opinion. However, we understand from the life of Shaheed-e-Thani and many other ulama. For example, the famous book Al-Muraja'at. Many of you will have seen, if you haven't, go and read it. Very good book. Al-Muraja'at An-Nas wal-Ijtihad. The author of this was Sayyid Sharafuddin Musawi, rahmatullah alayhi, great scholar. He himself traveled to Al-Azhar University to study under those scholars and also tell them about Shia Islam, to remove the ignorance that is there today. And we also need to do this. Tell our Sunni brothers, look, our Quran is your Quran. Our prayer is like your prayer. We pray 5 times a day. We believe that the Holy Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, is the greatest human being and he deserved Risala. Shaheed-e-Thani, in this way, he traveled to Egypt. He then traveled to Damascus, where he studied jurisprudence and medicine. In other words, he was an expert in medicine also. The story of the way in which he traveled from Syria to Istanbul is very interesting. Because he was in Syria, and at the time there were 2 routes to travel to Istanbul, Turkey, Constantinople. 2 routes. The first route was the famous route where many individuals would go by. The second route was very rarely used. Now, Shaheed-e-Thani had a very interesting habit and quality. Whenever a decision came in his life, he went straight to the Quran. Either he did istikhara, either he opened the Quran. So this time he sees that there are 2 groups going. One by the famous route, one by the less famous route. He says, Ya Allah, I'm doing istikhara as to whether I should go with the group who is going through the famous route. He opens it. It says no. He says, okay, Ya Allah, I believe in istikhara, I'll wait. So he waits. He waits for a long time. Another group comes, they're going by the famous route. Again, he says, Ya Allah, I'm opening istikhara as to whether I should go with this caravan in this famous route. The ayah comes, فَاسْبِرْ لِحُكْمِ رَبِّكَ. Have patience. لِحُكْمِ رَبِّكَ. On the command of your Lord, wait. So he says, I waited. I waited for such a long time, I became worried. But I had conviction and yaqeen in istikhara and the Quran. So I waited. A third group then came, they were again going by the famous route. I opened istikhara. This time it said, if you follow those, this was the ayah, if you follow those individuals, adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be on you. In other words, Allah is talking to him through the Quran. I realized, no, I shall wait. He said, I waited for such a long time. When the second group, who were going by the rare route, were leaving, I quickly took istikhara out. I took the istikhara. This time it came that today we will fulfill our promise. In other words, today you will go. He says, when I got there, I realized the other 3 groups who were going by the famous route, a problem had occurred and they had no food or drink throughout their whole journey. They were starving. They had to scavenge from here and there. I understood. I left my affairs in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of me. Here we understand, if I have something difficult, I've mentioned before about istikhara, I'll mention to you again, that istikhara is the 3rd stage. The first stage is that when I have a decision, when I have 2 options, the first stage is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me something known as aql. He's given me intellect to decipher between these 2 things. If still I cannot decipher, then I consult those individuals who are specialists in that area. For example, should I have this operation or not? I ask a doctor. If still then I am unsure about this, then I take out istikhara. And istikhara, there are many ways. Tasbih. There is one way where you do a dua and Allah puts the option in your heart automatically. The most famous is Quran. However, there is one problem. One problem with the istikhara is that we as individuals, the istikhara comes out good. I perform the action. It comes back to me in a negative way. I say, Ya Allah, I took out the istikhara. I took precaution. You told me to do it, but I lost this much money, for example. What is this, Ya Allah? It's a good question. To understand this, I narrate to you a very interesting story of one scholar in India, and this story occurred 1 or 2 years back, not a long time ago. This scholar was a poor, simple man, and he wanted to catch the train to go somewhere. He wanted to catch this train, but unfortunately he was running a bit late. Now he realized that the time was such that either he could just get the train or he could just miss the train. So he thought, look, I will have to pay for the taxi fare there and back to the train station. I don't have enough money to do that. Or I can't afford to lose that money. I can't afford to go there. The train has gone, then I have to pay to come back. So he said, I'll take out an istikhara. He takes out the istikhara comes good. He quickly leaves. He said, look, I can get the train. He says, taxi. He gets the taxi. He goes to the train station. As he gets to the train station, he realizes that the train has gone. He's thinking, Ya Allah, the train's gone. I was too late. He comes out of the train station. He sees that same taxi driver is there. He says, Bhai Saab, whatever they say in India, that I missed the train. Can you take me back home? He says, okay. On the journey back, he began thinking, Ya Allah, I did istikhara. Ya Allah, I put my affairs in your hands. You told me to go. I've lost this money. Just as he was thinking that, the taxi driver began talking to him. The taxi driver said, oh individual, you have come as a blessing to me. He said, why? It's because for 3 days there has been no food in my house. I was about to give my children poison so they would not have to suffer this pain of hunger. You, by giving me the fare to the train station and back, have caused me to have such a great benefit in my life. He realized when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do that action, it was for the benefit of those individuals. So when I open istikhara, it comes good. However, I realize it's negative for me, it may have benefited someone else. And here we find Shaheed-e-Thani throughout every stage of his life. He always consulted the Quran. He was a specialist in understanding the Quran. He was a specialist in pondering on the Quran. I've mentioned this before in other centers. This is the first time I think I'm mentioning it here. Don't be surprised. Never in your life should you read the Quran. Never. Some of you are thinking, what person has come here in Hyderi to recite this ashra? Never in your life read the Quran. I'm telling you. Don't read the Quran in your life. Understand and implement the Quran in your life. Don't read it. Understand it. Ponder on it. Delve into the commentary of the Quran. Only then will it have benefit. Now, let me mention a quick point. If you understand it, inshallah. And inshallah you're also awake. Ibn Abbas was a great mufassir and exeget of the Quran. One of those individuals which would provide the commentary. They asked, oh Ibn Abbas, how is it that you are such a mountain of tafsir? He says, I'll tell you. Listen. He says, one day I entered into the room and sitting there was the Holy Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And he was with his companions and they were eating dates. I said, Ya Rasulullah, after you finish your date, can I just have the seed? After you finish your date, can I have that seed? He says, yes. He says, I took the seed. It was covered in the saliva of the Prophet. I put it in my mouth. Since I have put it into my mouth, the whole knowledge of tafsir has come into my existence. In other words, the saliva of the Holy Prophet of Islam has such a great maqam that it allows Ibn Abbas to become mufassir of Quran. Now let me say one thing. When Ibn Abbas takes the saliva from the seed, he becomes exeget. When Ali ibn Abi Talib sucks the tongue directly, he becomes the walking, talking Quran. How is it Ali ibn Abi Talib had such great knowledge? It's because he sucked this tongue of Rasulullah. One of our lectures will be the great status and maqam of the Holy Prophet. If his saliva is so great, his sweat is so great, his hairs are so great, how great must he be as an individual? Shaheed-e-Thani, therefore, coming back, Shaheed-e-Thani through every point in his life ensured Quran was there and he understood Quran. When he got to Istanbul, for those of you who have been to Turkey, you will know that there is a shrine of Abu Ayyub Ansari rahmatullah alayhi today in Turkey. Abu Ayyub Ansari was one of the great companions of the Holy Prophet when the Holy Prophet of Islam did hijrah from Mecca to Medina. He was wondering, where should I go to stay? Because the house is being built, where should I stay in the meantime? As he was thinking this, Abu Ayyub comes from the back, he takes the luggage, he secretly takes it into his house. The Prophet looks around, he says, where's my luggage? They said, look, Abu Ayyub Ansari has it. He goes to the house of Abu Ayyub. Abu Ayyub says, now that you're here, you might as well stay with me. In other words, come and stay with me, Ya Rasulullah. Abu Ayyub was a great companion. His shrine today is in Istanbul, Turkey, Constantinople. Shaheed-e-Thani, he says, I went to visit the shrine. During this time, my wife was about to give birth during this date. She was back home, wherever they were. I wanted to know whether she was born, whether she has given birth or not. So I took the Quran. Again, I took the Quran. I opened it. Out came the ayah, فَبَشَّرْنَاهُ بِغُلَامٍ حَلِيمٍ. And we give you the good news of a boy. The Quran is speaking to Shaheed-e-Thani. He says, I understood that born to my wife was a child, a boy. When he returned back, he was in Istanbul. The ruler of the time, the Qadi, the judge, he had a question. He says, look, I've seen you look like a scholar. Are you a scholar? He said, yes, I'm a scholar. Can I ask you this question? Ask. It was a very in-depth question. He says, look, I'm a traveler. I have no books with me. I have no material with me. Give me 18 days. I will write for you a book on this topic. He wrote a book. He gave it to this individual. He says, look, this is the reply to your answer, to your question. This is the reply to your question. This Qadi, this judge says, how is it, O Shaheed-e-Thani, O Shaykh Zainuddin, in 18 days, without any books, as a traveler? You're not at home in the environment of your house, in a comfortable environment. How is it that you wrote such a masterpiece in 18 days? Shaheed-e-Thani, of course, must have said, Allah is the giver of power. This individual, this Qadi says, I want you to go to Syria and teach there. And they need a teacher who will teach all 5 schools of fiqh. Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Ja'fari. I want you to teach all 5. And there's a long story, we'll get to that in a minute. However, we understand something about Shaheed-e-Thani. That those individuals who encompass the message of Sayyidah Zainab salamullahi alayha. Allahumma. And the message of Imam Hussein, Abu al-Fadl Abbas, Aliyun al-Akbar, Sayyidah Kulthum, Sayyidah Sakina, those individuals that understand sacrifice. What do we learn from Shaheed-e-Thani? He sacrificed his whole life for Allah, for the benefit of Allah, the Ahlul Bayt, and the madhab of Shia. He sacrificed everything. We, if we also learn how to sacrifice things in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase our potential. In order for us as individuals to develop in society, we need to sacrifice. For example, once I was somewhere in London and I was traveling to a majlis, and the driver was there, wherever, and we were close to the majlis, and it was starting with Salatul Jama'ah, and I just looked around. Of course, I'm in the car, I'm not driving, I'm sitting. I looked around, and coincidentally, I saw there's a Muslim family. Salat of Maghrib is about 2 minutes away. There's a Muslim family. They're walking, and they are entering into a restaurant. Coincidentally, I knew who this family were. Some part of London. I began reflecting. They could have sacrificed 15 minutes or a bit of hunger. They could have prayed first, then gone to the restaurant. Why is it that we as individuals can't sacrifice these very small things, these petty things? Why can we not sacrifice small things like this and ensure our prayer is prayed on time? Why can we not sacrifice very tiny things in the way that Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayhi sacrificed everything for me and you to be sitting here? Why can we not sacrifice these very small things? When Shaheed-e-Thani understood the message of Sayyidah Zainab, understood the message of Imam Hussein, that sacrifice for Allah and you will be given. You will be given great merits. You will be able to perform crazy, unimaginable things. For sometimes you find individuals who have minds of geniuses. Sometimes you find individuals that are very rich. Allah has given them rizq. Why? Because they realize if I sacrifice for Allah, Allah will give to me. Shaheed-e-Thani, the same principle was in his life. He sacrificed everything for Allah. Allah gave him such great knowledge. Allah gave him such great merit. I'll mention about his merits in a minute, but what kind of knowledge did he have? I'll mention to you. He was in Masjid al-Kufa. I mentioned Masjid al-Kufa yesterday. And he was leading the salah. When he came the first day, no compass, no map, nothing. He said, the Qibla is wrong. He said, how do you know? You don't even have a compass. He said, look, I'm telling you, the Qibla is wrong. When I pray in this mosque, I will pray like this, for example. He said, okay. You're the boss, you're the sheikh, you're the scholar, you're the imam of Jama'ah. We'll accept. So he began leading the prayers in Masjid al-Kufa in a different direction. There was one individual who was thinking, this guy, Shaheed-e-Thani, Sheikh Nuruddin, who is he? There have been many big scholars that have come before him and prayed in this way. And so he would not pray in the Salat of Jama'ah. For 3 days this continued. The 4th day, Shaheed-e-Thani realized he was in the Jama'ah. He was praying behind me. So he went to him. He said, what happened? For 3 days you were objecting. You were saying the Qibla is wrong. And now you're in the Saf, you're in the Jama'ah. What happened? He said, Sheikh, forgive me. He says, why? He said, in my dream I saw Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And he entered into Masjid al-Kufa. He took a musalla and he prayed in the exact direction that you are praying in. I realize, Ya Shaykh, you are right, I am wrong. In other words, Shaheed-e-Thani had such great merit that the prophets, the Anbiya, the Awliya, the Imma, the Ahlul Bayt were behind him, they supported him. And there are many different types of anecdotes about his life and the way that they supported him. The way in which he had these mystical tendencies, the way in which his knowledge was like no other individual's knowledge. And you find, this Shaheed-e-Thani, when he was in Damascus teaching, as I mentioned, individuals, of course, from day one, have hated the Nawasib, the haters of they've hated any Shia individual. Go today in Syria, those individuals that are there, that are attacking, that are killing. You mention the name Ali, they'll kill you. You mention the name Hassan, Hussein, Abbas, Zahra, they'll spit at you. Why? Because they are the sons of Muawiyah. The sons of Muawiyah till today are alive. The sons of Yazid till today are alive. The sons of Abu Sufyan till today are alive. Shaheed-e-Thani, when he was in Syria, he was doing taqiyya. He realized, if I tell them I am Shia, if I tell them I'm such a great mujtahid, they'll kill me. So he's here, he's sitting here in Syria. They realize that, look, this guy, he's mentioning the fatawa of the Shia madhab. Not only that, he's talking well, he's praising the Ahlul Bayt. He must be Shia. And so they decide to kill him. They decide to kill him. Why? Because they are the followers of Muawiyah ibn Abu Sufyan. Muawiyah ibn Abu Sufyan. Who is this individual? I'll quickly mention. Listen to the tactics of Muawiyah. Listen to the reason why till today you will find many individuals who have hatred of Ali ibn Abi Talib in their hearts. Many individuals till today hate Imam Ali. They think he was nothing. He was dust. Muawiyah, listen to what he did. Listen to the schemes of Muawiyah which are still working today. Muawiyah, in Syria when he would tell his individuals, his workers, find all of the youth that live in the surrounding radius, all of the youth, and give them sheep and cattle. Cows, sheep, goats, etc. And say, this is a gift from Amir al-Mu'mineen Muawiyah. Give them this cattle, give the youth this gift from me. Say that this is for them to keep. So these individuals, these workers, they went to the youth are impressionable. They said, look, the great Amir, Sheikh, Allama, Muawiyah, he's giving you these gifts. They were happy. Free income. So they took these goats. 3 days later or 4 days later, Muawiyah says, now go at night time to those same youth, steal their goats, steal their cattle. So they went, they stole the cattle. The next morning he says, now go to them, tell them Ali ibn Abi Talib has stolen their cattle from them. Tell them that it is Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, who has stolen these cattle from them, so that they began to hate Ali ibn Abi Talib, so that from then on, Amirul Mu'mineen was cursed from the pulpits. These are the plots of Muawiyah ibn Abu Sufyan, which are still working today, and they worked against Shaheed-e-Thani. That Shaheed-e-Thani, he saw a dream. In his dream he saw, as I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, Sayyid Murtada. He saw Sayyid Murtada in his house is having a dinner, and all ulama are invited. Sheikh Mufid, Allama Hilli, Muhaqqiq Hilli, Sheikh Murtada Ansari, Muqaddas Ardabili, all are invited. Shaheed-e-Thani says, in my dream, I entered into the house of Sayyid Murtada. I saw that there were many people sitting there. There was one chair which was occupied, and next to that chair was an empty chair. In the occupied chair was Shaheed al-Awwal, who I mentioned about last year, Shaheed al-Awwal, who was martyred. As I entered, I saw there was a lot of room a lot of space in the room. However, Sayyid Murtada took me and sat me down next to Shaheed al-Awwal. I realized this is a sign that I am also going to be martyred. In other words, I am with Shaheed al-Awwal. And so, one of the legacies in the way that those that sacrifice in the way of Islam, they leave legacies behind. Imam Hussein's legacy till today. We are reliving the legacy right now. Shaheed al-Awwal had a legacy, the book Lumu'ah. Shaheed al-Awwal, I mentioned last year, he wrote this book in 7 days in the prison. Shaheed-e-Thani wrote a commentary on that same book in 6 months and 6 days. Till today, and it's called Sharh al-Lumu'ah. Till today, Sharh al-Lumu'ah is studied in every single seminary on the planet. And no individual can call himself Maulana Shaykh Allama without studying this book. Ulama say it's a miracle. Oh Shaheed-e-Thani, how is it you wrote a book in 6 months and 6 days, which requires 2 years minimum to study? His legacy was left behind in this way, that he realized, if I sacrifice what I have for Islam and Ahlul Bayt, my legacy will remain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me such knowledge that I'm able to tell the future. I'm able to understand things no one could understand. Till today, his services are used in the Hawza, and till today his book lives on. They say, after he finished the Hajj, he was coming back from Makkah, he was going back to Constantinople. They killed him. They beheaded him. And for 40 days, his body, headless, lay in between Constantinople and Makkah. There were certain farmers, they had seen that there was a certain light resonating from this body. They didn't know who it was. And they saw that whenever his blood was spilt on the ground, it spelt the name Allah. Whenever the blood of Shaheed-e-Thani, the body, fell on the ground, it spelt the name Allah. They buried him after 40 days. However, we say this, that Shaheed-e-Thani, yes, you went through a lot, you sacrificed yourself for Allah, for Ahlul Bayt. But when you were beheaded, the women of your family, they weren't looted. When you were beheaded, the children weren't slapped. When you were beheaded, the orphans, they weren't harassed, they weren't assaulted. However, the orphans of Hussein, the women of Hussein, the children of Hussein ibn Ali, the way in which they as individuals were tortured. Inshallah, in the next few nights, I'll mention many masa'ib of Zaynab salamullahi alayha, and the way in which she said her last salam to certain individuals. I'll mention the masa'ib of Sayyid al-Sajjad. But today, the way in which Sayyida Zaynab had to say salam to one individual, and it was very difficult for her. For in the masa'ib we mention that when Janab Hur, salamullah alayhi, comes to Imam Hussein with a handkerchief wrapped around his hands. Listen to this carefully. And he comes with his youthful son. Hur had a youthful son in Karbala. As he comes towards Hussein, suddenly Bani Hashim encircle Imam Hussein. Then make sure this Hur doesn't touch Hussein. As they encircle him, then the companions, they encircle Bani Hashim. Make sure no one touches Bani Hashim. Imagine the same Hussein on the day of Ashura. Bani Hashim are gone, the companions are gone. Imam Hussein says, let Hur come, I know why he's coming. Hur comes forward. Hur says, will you ever forgive me, O my master, O Hussein? He says, of course, I have forgiven you. Come in my hands. Allow me to hug you, Ya Hur. Then Hur says, I have one wish. Listen to his wish. He says, I have one wish. He says, what is your wish? He says, my wish, Ya Aba Abdullah, my wish, Ya Aba Abdullah, is that my youthful son is able to be sacrificed. My wish, Ya Aba Abdullah, is that my youth is able to be sacrificed before me. Hussein ibn Ali says, allow him to go, for this is the day when every single individual will be martyred. The youthful son of Hur
The youthful son of Hur goes to the battlefield. Listen, as he is killed, Hur goes to the maqtal to pick up the body of his youthful son. Imam Hussein says some beautiful words. He says, Oh Hur, an elderly father. An elderly father never picks up the body of his youthful son. Oh Hur, an old father never picks up the body of his youthful son. Allow me to go. Hussein goes and picks up the youthful son of Hur. Isaiah Aba Abdullah, it was you that said an old father never picks up the body of his youthful son. But on the 10th of Muharram, you are seen picking up the body of Ali al-Akbar. Ali al-Akbar, he comes to his mother. Yes, Zainab was like the mother of Ali al-Akbar. He says, Oh, my auntie Zainab, who is greater, you or Fatima Zahra? Who is greater? Zainab replies, Oh, Ali al-Akbar, of course, Zahra is greater. He says, then allow your son to be sacrificed for the son of Zahra. As Ali al-Akbar goes to the battlefield, they said Layla was watching through the maqtal. Layla was watching the maqtal while sitting on her musalla. Zainab watched, tears flowing down her eyes. Zainab watched from the tent. Aba Abdullah sees his youthful son, and he is watching from a small hill. As Ali al-Akbar goes, he fights as he falls off the horse. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, oh my father, Ya Aba Abdullah. Listen, as he falls from the horse, Layla falls in sajda. Hussein falls from the hill in shock. Zainab falls from the tents. Imam Hussein, he rushes to the maqtal. Ali al-Akbar, where are you? Ali al-Akbar, where are you? He finds Ali al-Akbar. One hand of Ali al-Akbar is on his chest. Hussein says, I am an old father. Allow me to pick up this body. He tries once to pick up the body. He tries a second time. He tries a third time. He says, Oh Ali al-Akbar, your father is old. Put your hands around the body. He only puts one hand around the body. Hussein says, put the other hand. He says, no Baba, I can't put the other hand around. He says, why? He shows his hand. There is a spear in the heart of Ali al-Akbar. As he tries to pick up the body, what does Zainab say? Zainab says, should I leave the tent to help you? Should I leave the tent to help you, Ya Hussein? Hussein says, Zainab, never leave the tent. There are no mahram here, Ya Hussein. After you went, Zainab was forced to leave the tent, for the tents were on fire. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. يا حسين يا حسين.